I am so tired.
She's tired. Don't you know she's pooped?
I'm so tired of the news. I'm so tired of having to look at it. I'm tired of it coming on my newsfeed. I'm tired of it interrupting my what should be uninterrupted stream of puppy videos and pictures on the internet. If you're on the internet, you can't get away from the news or things that claim to be the news. Like the other day when I opened up Twitter and my entire feed was just people screaming about someone wanting to touch their precious princess bride and how it was the worst thing ever to happen to humanity and we're a failure as a culture because someone wants to remake one of the most popular movies ever made. Now, when I read this article, two things immediately came to mind about this whole remake The Princess Bride idea. One, the article actually doesn't announce that they're remaking The Princess Bride. Everyone is just talking about it like it's an inevitability, and the truth of the article is that it's a guy, an executive, talking about how he knows that there are high-profile people who want to make it. Basically, it's gossip. It is just gossip. Some people in Hollywood want to remake The Princess Bride. If people in Hollywood got everything they wanted, then every movie would cost $10 to make and do Get Out numbers, and we would have Sam Worthington as a bankable action star. But my second thought on the article was, even if it was gonna happen, even if it was an official trade paper press announcement that they're gonna remake The Princess Bride, should people be frustrated and angry? No. No, they shouldn't. Stories are not sacred.
The sacred Jedi text!
I'll say it again. Stories are not sacred. At least, they're not sacred because of what they are, but because of how they make us feel. I'm Elise, this is Cold Takes, and today we are going to talk about why you should remake everything.
And this is the theme music for this video. Da 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 da.
So, in 1930, super chill, anti-fascist, communist Comrade Bay Dashiell Hammett wrote one of the most enduring and remembered and beloved detective classics of all time, The Maltese Falcon. Its gritty urban backdrop and its tough-as-nails detective at the center, this book became the symbol of everything we today think of as the detective story, particularly when we think about noir. If you know anything about The Maltese Falcon, you are probably thinking about this one. Humphrey Bogart, Mary Astor, John Huston, 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. What you probably aren't thinking of is, well, it's a remake. So, after the success of Dashiell Hammett's 1930s novel, the book was extensively optioned, and I'll kind of explain what I mean by that later, by Warner Brothers. At the time, Warner Brothers was trying to make the hard transition from musicals, which had been their biggest bestsellers up until that point, but were declining in popularity, to more realistic pictures. It was during this period of the early 30s that the studio decided to cement its reputation as the gangster studio, involving itself mostly in crime dramas and shoot-'em-up thrillers. It was in this climate that Warner Brothers released what was then known as The Maltese Falcon. We know it, if you know it at all, since it really isn't very popular and only gets played at like 3 a.m. at Turner Classic Movies, as The Dangerous Lady. It was a flop. Garbage. And it was so explicit and it broke so many Hays Code rules that later when Warner Brothers tried to re-release it, it was banned by the Production Code Office. Which, like, is kind of cool. It's not a good movie, but it's kind of cool. Okay, the 1931 Maltese Falcon is a bust. Everyone hates it, but Warner Brothers negotiated remake rights in their contract with Dashiell Hammett. What's a studio to do when they have the rights to a popular property? They remake it. In 1936, with Warner Brothers' second revival of musicals like Footlight Parade and 42nd Street Kaput, they again try to remake their inroads with noir. They are desperate to capture the box office magic that their neighbor MGM has made with The Thin Man, which is based on another Dashiell Hammett book. So, for some reason, they asked Brown Holmes, that hack who ruined their first Maltese Falcon picture, to come in and adapt The Maltese Falcon again. This time making it funnier and something that maybe their studio queen, Betty Davis, could star in. Yeah, that didn't work. This time it was called Satan's Lady, and Betty Davis famously called it one of the worst turkeys she'd ever starred in. And the New York Times reviewed it as a cynical farce of elaborate and sustained cheapness that deserves to be quoted as a classic of great dullness. Not great, Bob. But then it's 1940, and Warner Brothers' new hotshot writer wants to take his first turn as a director, and John Huston wants it to be the Maltese Falcon. They offer him, and he accepts, full control over the production of the third reincarnation of the Maltese Falcon, this time starring studio-heavy Humphrey Bogart and starlet Mary Astor. The film opens in October of 1941, and it is an instant smash hit, still identified by many today as the definitive detective film, and one of the greatest films to come out of the studio system era of classic Hollywood. It took them 3 tries, but on the 3rd try, they launched the directorial career of one of the greatest to ever come out of the studio system, made Humphrey Bogart as a movie star, and gave us one of the greatest films of all time. Without the Maltese Falcon, you don't get Batman, or Fargo, or Blade Runner, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But okay, let's say you couldn't give 2 licks about Humphrey Bogart or the Maltese Falcon or Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Let's say that that argument doesn't convince you. The first 2 Maltese Falcons were garbage, and of course they should remake it until they get it right? Well, there's nothing wrong with the original Cinderella story, right? The oral tradition of Cinderella is perfectly fine and magical as it is. The novel Pride and Prejudice, an absolute masterpiece. Hamlet, incredible on the page, as is, and probably perfect when it was originally played in London in Shakespearean England. Now, you might be saying, but Elise, those are adaptations, not remakes, to which I would say there is no appreciable difference between saying, I don't want them to remake this thing because they might screw it up, and I don't want them to adapt this thing because they might screw it up. If we were as precious with stories as we are with movies, we wouldn't have some of the greatest and most beloved classics in our canon. We wouldn't have Ever After. We wouldn't have Pride and Prejudice, or Pride and Prejudice, or Bride and Prejudice, or the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. We wouldn't have The Lion King. I mean, I'd be okay if we didn't have the second Lion King, but we wouldn't have the first Lion King, or Lion King 2, or Lion King 1.5. God, I love Lion King 2.
Roasty princess, roasty princess.
So, on a personal note, I grew up in the theater. I love the theater. I spent a whole lot of money. Some might say wasted a whole lot of money getting a theater degree. I love the theater, and one of the things that I love best about theater is that there really isn't an idea of the canon. I mean, we have the canon in, we have Hamlet, and we have Streetcar Named Desire, and we have, kind of the plays of record and the pieces of note. But there is no one Elphaba. There is no one Phantom. There's no one way to stage our town or Oklahoma. The story and the way it makes you feel is the important thing, not the person saying the lines or the backdrop against what they're said. One thing that theater people know that I wish people who loved movies knew is that when you let stories live, you get the joy of constantly rediscovering them and falling in love with them all over again, of finding new things about them to love and finding new ways to engage with them. That isn't scary. That's wonderful. I remember once I was listening to this podcast, and they had a guest on. It was like a Star Wars podcast, and they had this guest on who was just a very prolific Star Wars collector. Like, he had somewhere close to millions of dollars worth of actual Star Wars merch. And during the interview, one of the hosts was like, what are the rules, when people come to visit, your collection, kind of joking, oh, do you have to wear white gloves, and people have to wear hazmat suits and whatever. And the guy was very honest. He just said, the only rule is that if someone wants to play with the toy, it comes out of the box. And the host kind of freaked out. He was like, what do you mean it comes out of the box? The box is what makes it precious, what makes it priceless. The box is the important thing, because the box makes it valuable. And the guy just kind of shrugged and said, they're toys. They're meant to be played with. They're meant to make you happy. And something that guy knows, and something that theater people know, that I wish more movie people understood, is that Stories should make us happy. And when we tack them up on a wall and never let anyone touch them or play with them, we're treating our culture as a museum, as something to examine from a distance rather than something to experience and rediscover and love in new and exciting and different ways. So go ahead, remake everything. But here's the catch. Don't remake it the same. If we're gonna remake these movies, the ones we love, the ones we hate, don't pull the Disney live action card. Pull the toys off of the shelf and actually play with them. And indeed, just like with the Maltese Falcon, we might just get our best work. Give me Tessa Thompson as Buttercup in The Princess Bride. Give me Paul Dano in North by Northwest. Give me a modern day Casablanca. Give me everything. And let's see what wonderful, exciting, brilliant worlds we can discover in the future by interrogating and playing with the films of our past. And if you're still apprehensive about remakes, which I understand it's hard to let go of things that we love, hard to let other people play with our toys, think of it not as a remake, but as a cover. We still have Dolly Parton's wonderful rendition of I Will Always Love You, even though Whitney Houston's became a chart topper. We can still listen to Jeff Buckley and Leonard Cohen and about a million terrible YouTube singers' versions of Hallelujah, 9 Inch Nails and Johnny Cash's Hurt, the Toronto cast and the Broadway cast of Ragtime. Even if your favorite film gets made, even if you hate the remake, you still have the original. It doesn't suddenly erase the film you loved. That's the great thing about film that theater doesn't have. Theater is ephemeral and fleeting, but film endures. With film, no matter how many times Hollywood retells their stories, no matter how many times your favorite gets remade and messed around with, you still have the one that you fell in love with. Your favorite films will always be out there waiting for you to go and visit them again. Oh, and Hollywood, if you're gonna remake Twilight, please hire me! Hey everyone, this is Elise. Thank you so much for watching this video. I guess it's a little bit controversial. Everyone is very much on the remake disagree train. But if you do have some films that you think would be great and ripe for a remake, please put them down in the comments. If you liked the video, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. You can go visit me on Patreon. And a little teaser. The other day, Jenny Nicholson asked what the worst Broadway adaptation of a known property is. And my next video, we're going to answer that question by visiting our friendly neighborhood Spider Broadway man. Oh, and if you're feeling in the spooky spirit and getting ready for Halloween, I have a Halloween book out. It's on Kindle Unlimited. It's free. I think you guys would really enjoy it if you like, kind of Halloween, town hocus pocus, practical magic, that sort of thing. I'll put the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Tell me what your favorite remake is or which one you would like to remake in the comments below. See you next time. Bye!